Friends, welcome to the first interview of the year. The season is underway. We are finishing up week 5. I believe it'll finish up on the day that this will come out, so Sunday. But we have the league president slash commissioner and team owner of Ronald Reagen, Mr. Isaiah. Isaiah, how we doing today, bud?
Just glad to be here. That's it.
That's it. Just glad to be here. That makes one of us. So let's start this off. You are 3-1 this year. You've had decent success, at least in your second, third, and fourth game, right? Your first game was a little bit tough, but it was a short week, and the season was just getting underway. Have you done anything differently this year with your team than you've done in years past, or have you found that winning formula and you're just kind of gonna stick to it?
Completely differently, with all due respect. So, this game, just to put it into like baseball terms for you, they threw me a curveball this year, right? 12 teams in the league. We all had to make big adjustments. And we see it both in a few places in the pitching staffs of all these teams right now and in the waiver wire. You cannot find quality starters of either batters or pitchers on the waiver wire nowadays. So, it's really important to keep the things that you got and kind of draft a lot of pitchers too.
Yeah. Well, and I think this year the draft meant a lot more than it has in years past.
Absolutely.
How did you approach that draft to try to make sure that you got quality players up front and you didn't have to search for players later?
Well, I tried drafting players that I know did not work out that well. You Darvish, IL, Carlos Rodon. Does he want to be here? Does he want to pitch more than 3 or 4 innings a game? Yet to be seen. But there have been some big pay cups along the way. I think that started when we got Zach Eflin off my dad. Huge pickup this year, quality starter. Aaron Nola coming from Dave, and I think that we're going to be in the same place at the end of the year this year, where I think I'm going to have some thanks to give around to the to each of the owners of the league.
Now, you've talked a little bit about transactions. What has your approach to those transactions been this year? Because, like you said, you can't just go out and get these high quality players anymore. So, and especially with the limit on transactions per week, it's almost as though it's set up to where more transactions is more successful, but having a limit on that, you have to be selective.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I've tried to do as little transactions as possible this year, has been my goal. So I'm trying to keep myself to under 2 transactions per week. So far in the first 5 weeks, I have not met that goal any of the weeks, but I am still trying, and I will continue diligently in that effort.
I will say of any team, you limiting yourself to transactions probably the most surprising thing I may hear this year. Uh, so with the way that your team's looking now, sitting at 3-1, good position. You always want to start off strong. Where do you see yourself at the All-Star break? And where do you see yourself kind of once playoff time continues? Because every team has those slow spots of the season. How do you think you're going to be able to react to those? And where do you think that's going to put you at those two checkpoints?
Well, I expect to have approximately 5 to 6 players on my bench on the IL by the All Star break. That's not because people are getting hurt. That's because we are going to be in first or second place position by the All Star break. We will have no worries of our team for the rest of it. When we start dropping people around the league, I will be here picking up those IL slots. Garrett Cole, I am looking at you. All right, Max Scherzer, I am looking at you. At some point, those guys will got to go, and I will be here.
Okay, so you bring up a very interesting point, right? The IL. Now, what is your approach? And I'm asking you this as the league commissioner, right? Putting your team aside for a second. What is your approach to address this league-wide injury pandemic that's going on? Because there was one point I had 6 people on the IL, mostly pitchers, like top-tier pitchers. I believe Cleveland Rocks has 7 right now, right? There's a pandemic of injuries. What are you as a commissioner doing to try to minimize that?
Well, there's nothing that you can do as a manager. You only have one button or two buttons available to you, and that is the add button and the drop button. And that's all you get as a manager around here. For me, when a player goes down and he's middle of the road, back end of the road, he's gone. All right. We need people that are going to produce each week. However, there comes a time when you just say, I got too many people on the IL this week. It's going to be a loss. And that's okay because my team will be a lot better for it the next week and the week after that. It's just minimizing those 3 week 4 week gaps where you're battling injuries and minimizing that down to a 1 week gap that you blow the game on.
Right. What's the league doing though to try to minimize these injuries?
Absolutely nothing. All right. So injuries are important to the league. They add chaos, they add randomness to the league. I think one of the teams, it was Angel Hernandez for president. Actually, something came out about it in the news where his number 4 overall pick ended up going out for the season. And while that may not be good for him, it is good for the league to cause that chaos, cause that randomness. You're never safe. You're never safe.
No, and that's fair, and I think it keeps owners on their toes, you know. The
Hmm.
the owner over there at Angel Hernandez for president, I know that he struggled a lot at the beginning of the season because of those IL issues, and
Hmm.
Cleveland Rocks may have to deal with that going forward too. So you beat Joe Johnson, you beat Lion Lover, and you beat Angel Hernandez. They're a combined 5 for 7. So I think that it's fair to say that your 3-1 record is not necessarily against, you know, A1 teams. They're not necessarily bad, right? But when you combine them together, 5 and 7, how do you think that you'll stack up though against these top tier teams? The Pablo Sanchez's of the league, the Cleveland Rocks if people stop getting hurt. How do you think you stack up against those teams?
I am really glad that you brought that up with the Cleveland Rocks. I think that we all have to remember right now that Cleveland Rocks is currently 1-3. He is also currently getting beat by Nick Moffat, who is 1-3, historically a bad player. All right, we may be witnessing the end of Cleveland Rocks dynasty here. If we go to 1-4, let it slip to 1-5, very possible when he goes against the likes of Angel Hernandez for president. All right, we could be looking at a person or an owner in to be frank, panic mode.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's interesting that you bring this up because he really has built a dynasty. And I think that this year is going to be something that he hasn't had to deal with yet. And especially if he slides that 1-4, that 1-5, how he reacts to that.
Yeah. Well, it all started when there was that big hit piece put out on Ronald Reagan early in the year. I think it was the journalist covering the power rankings was talking about Ronald Reagan not deservedly being a number 3, not deservedly being a number 3 power ranked team. Well, I think we all saw the answer to that, and maybe the owner of that report now paying the price.
Well, and you know, when it comes to journalism, I think with the exception of me, who is the most fair and balanced journalist that
Oh,
exists, right? I think sometimes you're gonna get that kind of thing. I do think though he may be heeding his words,
yeah.
and but I think that's also good for the league as well. Um,
Hmm.
so let me ask you about the league kind of as a whole. Are there any teams that have really kind of surprised you with success or failure or wherever it sits? And we've already talked about Cleveland Rocks, but are there any other teams where you're like, man, thought they'd be better, or wow, this team has really taken off?
Well, I mean, of course, we have 3 new teams in the league this year. All right. Of those 3 teams, their combined record 10-2.
Wow.
Uh, we have had teams that have been playing in the league for years. These newcomers are coming in with a fire and a passion and a knowledge of ball that is just frankly not inherent to the current players in the league or the more former owners in the league. So I would say that I'm very surprised. I mean, we saw it in the first few years. Joe Johnson's trying to get his feet under him, finally makes it to the playoff appearance. Nice run, but he's looking for more this year. We haven't seen it where teams are just taking off right out of the bat first year in the league.
Yeah. Well, and I think we've seen historically is those teams in their first, second, sometimes even their third year are quite literally a free win for whoever they play against. Now,
Mhm.
looking at it this year, do you believe that the expansion that this league has undertaken, and there were some articles put out, some positive, some negative, that spoke about this, but do you think that expansion has almost evened the playing field when it comes to the boys baseball league, fantasy baseball
It,
league?
yeah, it's really actually made the strategies that we had been employing for the last 7, 8 years a little bit not as valuable
Mm-hmm.
almost. The 12-team leagues, and so anybody that was still following in those old strategies is well bound to meet their fate, to put it plainly here. So I think that that's why the new teams coming in with a fresh perspective on the league in a fresh new league had the upper hand in this one. I mean, it seems like so far. I want to single out one team in particular. It is the Springfield Isotopes. I will ask you, did you see this coming?
I did not see the success that he's had coming, but I didn't see this season as a failure because he does have half a season under his belt. He has a little bit of time.
Mm,
And last year, I know when I spoke to him, there was a lot of growing pains that happened, and he saw some late season success. But in my conversations with him, it was a lot of him going, "I don't know what's going. You guys are doing weird things, and
mm,
I don't know how to go against those, right?" But
mm.
I think with that expansion, I think it kind of evens that out a little bit, and I think he's able to play his game now. He's able to employ strategies that he is comfortable with rather than trying to play the league's ball.
100%.
So, I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. I think by the end of the season, there's going to be some really surprising teams. And let me ask you this. Do you think that this is finally the year that Pablo Sanchez doesn't run the table?
Well, Paulo Sanchez seems to have this thing where he gets advanced intel on the best pitchers of each year and then is able to draft those all at the beginning. We are seeing this again this year. There are talks that maybe he will be opening up some form of a class, picking pitchers, something along those lines. But to be honest, with the team that I'm seeing in front of me, it's going to be me or him.
You okay, a little hot take there, huh? Little hot take. We're gonna clip that, and we'll be playing it back in about 10 weeks, and we'll see where we're at. Um, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I know we're 4 weeks in, right? But the season's still very fresh and it's still very new. And I do think that there are teams out there like Joe Johnson, Angel Hernandez for president, some of those old school teams that have been around for what 7, 8 years now, where they're still trying to figure out how to play this new game. I mean, there's new rules, there's new points, there's a whole lot going on in the league. And so I'm asking you this again as you being the commissioner and not an owner. Where do you see this league going right in the next 4, 5, 6 years? Because the first kind of 7 or 8, I mean, the league was kind of figured out. I mean, there were some teams that had to leave. They got sold or disbanded. Um, and then there was a while it was really comfortable, and now there's kind of that shakeup again. Where do you see the league going?
Well, to put it in very honestly, I think in a little bit of a chaotic direction here. I really do believe that we may be seeing the end of the same teams in the playoffs each year. I think that we're going to get a lot more diversity in both the playoffs and in the semifinal rounds. And I say that for two reasons. Number one, because of the six teams in the playoffs right now.
Mm,
We'll be getting half of the league inside of the playoffs each and every year. Any of those teams can make a run when it comes to the playoffs. Secondly, everything is changing up so that the draft is way, way more important this year than it has ever been. Some of those teams that could hang out on the waiver wire, vulture the players when they were just one day off the rest, that's not a viable strategy anymore. And so more of the importance will be placed for things where even if you are only paying attention to your team once a week, putting in the 5, 10 minutes to set your lineup, you can still find very solid success. And I think that we're actually seeing that with Lion Lovers this year again. I know that she had a new draft strategy, but I know that she's also probably putting in the same amount of time and still finding moderate success in today's era.
Yep. Now, there was an expansion this year. Let's hypothetically say that the league goes through another one, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 2 to 4 more teams in a period of time. Probably not all four at once, but
Mhm.
is that something that the league is looking at? And are they looking at it as a 5 year goal, a 10 year goal? Where's the league headed in that direction? Because expansion is always good. I mean, I think there's few times where the expansion itself is bad, maybe the implementation is. But how much more focus that's going to put on the draft, and it's going to stretch a lot more players and stuff. But is that something that the league is looking at and thinking about, or is that something you can't comment on right now?
Well, right now, the league is not looking to get any more than 12 teams into the uh, um, into the league right now. However, we are looking at something very important called the minor league fantasy system, looking at a relegation type of system. All right. This would be something where we now have 12 new teams that would want to play in the Baseball Boys Fantasy League that
Mhm.
would then be battling it out, one team each year, playing for the championship against the worst team in this year, being able to move into the Baseball Boys Fantasy League. So, not looking to get any more teams in the big league because of the amount of players, the amount of freedom that comes with only 12 teams as opposed to 14 teams. But we are looking at a minor league team starting next year.
Well, and I know there were some talks between the commission or the board and the commissioner earlier this season, and I know there was a small part. Some sources have informed me that they were even talking about that minor league kind of being a different type of league too, with very different rules, just to kind of mix it up and make it a little bit more fun. I'm not going to ask you to necessarily comment on that because, we've reached out to your office, and I think what you just said kind of aligns with what your office has told us. But I think that there are some exciting times for this league coming up. And to be honest with you, I really look forward to it. And I think that you're doing a great job. I think the board is doing a great job. And and I think that none of it would be possible without the teams and the owners as well. And I think that we appreciate them just as much as we appreciate what y'all do.
No comment.
Fair enough. You're just here so you don't get fined, right? Um Other than that, is there anything that you want to say to the league? Is there anything that you want to say to the other owners, whether it's as commissioner or as an owner yourself?
Well, I think that we are going to see one or two teams get embarrassed this year. And I'm
Mm.
looking at you, the Joe Johnsons. I'm looking at you, the Cleveland Rocks. All right. Somebody will be embarrassed this year. And I'm excited to kind of see who that will be. In the past, it has been Nick Moffat. I believe that it is his year again, but he is not the lead forerunner for most embarrassing season like he had sometimes been in the past.
Yes.
My I am looking to win every game from here on out. So please know that coming into the games when I play you, and well, good luck to you.
Well, and we'll see what happens, as time goes on and more injuries happen and you actually play teams that are decent. Um, but other than that, Isaiah, I just really wanted to say thank you for coming on today, taking time out of your day to talk to me, to talk to the league, to answer some questions, and I look very forward to next time.
Absolutely, absolutely. As do I.
Sir, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.